Hello, fine individuals. Welcome once again to the Dr. Zero Free Magic Secret Show, where we talk about all forms of magic for all kinds of magical audiences. And today, what I wanted to do was talk a bit about, once again, the Sacred Tarot by C.C. Zane, who lived 1882 to 1951. He left behind 34 books. One of them is a book called The Sacred Tarot, and there's a deck of cards that comes with this called the Brotherhood of Light Tarot. And this is called Egyptian Tarot. And this is completely different than the tarot you know, kind of, sort of. So here's where it deviates and why it's important. So C.C. Zane was the secretary for the Hermetic Order of Luxor, which had maintained all kinds of knowledge that Golden Dawn wasn't quite aware of, and whose information stretches back far away. So the thing is, when it comes to any tarot system, it just has to be cumulative. It has to be an organized system that makes sense, right? The Golden Dawn method of doing it, which the Rider-Waite cards are the main deck of, that's a fully cohesive system. Thalima's system with Crowley's deck, while that is a fully comprehensive system, it isn't really an accurate representation of the Kabbalah because it deviates too much stuff from the source material. And then there's different forms of Kabbalah which are trying to peel it back to its original Egyptian ideas and such, without necessarily calling it Egyptian tarot. So what we have here is a deck that is straight up calling itself Egyptian tarot. And it's different because unlike the other form of Kabbalah we know, which is based on the Tree of Life, this one is based on a design called the Grand Pentagram. And it has also to do with the lessons of the pyramids and such. And the long story here is that in one sense, if you look at the Rider-Waite cards and what's known there, each card represents basically a biblical lesson. But the wisdom lesson we're talking about is one that's prevalent in Shakespeare and in ancient Greeks and in all kinds of traditions. But so in that sense, it's like situations you're confronted in life. And depending on the option you make, you go one way or the other. This is why when you follow the sequence of the tarot cards, they get increasingly dramatic over time. So starting with the Hanged Man is when things could go horrifically wrong, and it keeps continuing on for so forth, blah, blah, blah. So the Grand Pentagram basically absorbs the entire Kabbalah diagram. It absorbs all the Jewish ideas, and then it accompanies some other ones. And the main text that this is based on, so Iamblichus was a post-Plato philosopher who had a lot of mystical ideas from Plato and Aristotle, and also Pythagoras. And he was a brilliant guy in his time, and he wrote the book on Pythagoras. But he was also slightly cracked and had all sorts of wacky ideas that just absolutely were not real. But he was also brilliant at the same time. So he's kind of a semi-forgotten philosopher in the world of academics. They know about him, but they know he's kind of a crackpot at the same time, so they avoid him. So anyway, years later, there were, like a lot of other authors, fake books that had his name attached to it that he didn't write. One of them was called Iamblichus on the Mysteries, and in which he talks about all the pyramids and the lessons and such. And people didn't really know that was from Iamblichus. It was just some other writer. However, everything he was talking about was relevant, okay? But it still set up the framework where it started the legend that perhaps tarot cards actually originated from Egypt. Tarot cards in their own form started in the 1400s in Italy, actually, but the ideas and lessons are all, Egyptian. So, blah, blah, blah. What happens is the first time that magic gets a big renaissance in a long time is the 1700s, late 1700s. There's a guy named Eliphas Levi. He becomes super famous, and one of his students is a guy who pens a book that's all about on the mysteries and such, and he develops a tarot system based on the fake Iamblichus book, which is still legitimate knowledge, blah blah blah, and they built the whole cohesive thing out of that, which lands down. So it deviates. It was created before the Golden Dawn tried to, and A.E. Waite and all these people began really pushing it. Israel Regardie's view and all this stuff. Like, this is like 100 years before him. So this is like a pre-Golden Dawn, fully comprehensive system of tarot, and it deviates because it it not only reads the Jewish letter, a lot of the cards are in different positions. Some of them, they have different things attributed to them as far as like zodiac sign and such. And there's a definite number scheme underneath. Now, even though it changes the attribution of certain zodiac signs or such, the way it's described, it still basically represents the Rider-Waite Tarot as we more know it. It's just different. They're talking about different aspects of astrological signs that basically explain the same lesson of what Rider-Waite Golden Dawn style would be. So keep that in mind. So basically, they're arranged differently. And instead of having the king, queen, knight, and page as the YHVH of the Tree of Life, that the concept's gone. So the horseman, the page, the king and queen, they're seen more as coordinates of space. When you see, I believe it's like one of the 4 quarters of space, 4 quarters of time that the Egyptians associated. One's a bull, one's an eagle, and there's 2 more as well. So that's where that takes place. And then it has more to do with astrology and about the idea of when planets are in harmony, there's like a third planet that becomes like the high note of whatever like the triad would be. And it's kind of like the divination that you're supposed to get from the card, or the way that it's pointing is that higher note. Furthermore, this deck is different, is that the Justice is number 8 and the Strength card is 11. And the reason why is that the Egyptians saw justice as the central underpinning of life, the essence of it. That's why they see 8, they see 2 blocks on top of each other, 2 squares on top of each other, and then the infinity symbol, because they believed in justice, whether poetic or literal. There's a sense of justice to the universe. And they saw the card Strength in their design at 11, and 11 represents like expansion of force. Sort of like when you say the first sequence, the first sequence of tarot leading all the way up to the Wheel of Fortune. It's like pushing a boulder uphill. Once you get to the 10 card, the Wheel of Fortune, that's kind of like when the big boulder that is the Wheel of Fortune just rests on top of the hill. The card 11 is when you push it in any direction and then it starts rolling down the hill. From then it has its own momentum. So sort of like that. 10 is like the Fool, the 0 on the next bracket. Except in this Egyptian tarot, the 0 card, that's all. They make the Magician the number 1, and they make that Aleph, the Jewish letter, right? And they don't gotta. So what they do is basically it starts at 1, and then goes to 9, and then 10 is the beginning of a new sequence, and then what happens is that the final card that you get is card number 22, since they're not doing 0, but it also represents 0, because if it's upside down, it would represent 0. If it was normal side up, it'd represent 22. And it's the judgment card, where either A, you go to like Hades, the Pluto underworld, you get or whatever, and you get stuck on the earth realms, or you shoot up to Pluto towards the heavens and become one with the universe in the Egyptian view. So that's just a rough thing of why that deviates. So there's all kinds of reasons, and there's all kinds of interesting reasons with color, vibrational scales, and such. So anyway, the point is, I just want to concentrate on a few cards and say what he says about them. And then you'll see the underlying number scheme behind it, as well as clear definition. And also, I wanted to state that you should really get this book. It's called The Sacred Tarot. There's a hardcover book. It's like $25 from the Brotherhood of Light. And the cards are great. Get the bigger size ones. Pretty much everything I ever want to know about Magick really is pretty much condensed in this book. And he's a great teacher because you have to carefully read the text over and over. There's no one page that's like, here's what the horsemen mean, here's whatever. It's like it's all mucked in there, and you have to just sort through it all and contemplate it. And every time you learn about another card, it takes a long time to absorb. So this is a book that you spend a couple of years kind of picking at. Because when the ancient days, they said you're supposed to like drop everything you're doing in a serious discussion of this and a serious gnosis with this, and you're supposed to basically like completely concentrate on like one tarot card at a time for like a few weeks, if not several months, and completely absorb the lesson before moving on to the next. It's like a slow process. That's the thing. So these are cheats to tarot that I'm teaching a lot in these channel, but it helps. So getting to it, I wanted to talk about the Hanged Man card and about the Devil card. And then we're going to talk about the Finale card and how that plays in. with number 22 either shooting you straight down to the depths of the underworld or shooting you all the way into the heavens where you become gnosis with the universe. And that ties into the whole white diamond, black diamond theory, basically, of talk with the Kabbalah, white diamond, the black diamond, look into it. So again, and one thing before I continue, you say like when Moses was initiate of the Egyptian mystery schools, and he took all that knowledge and then reinterpreted it through a Jewish mythology to teach it to those people. So it's sort of like each Jewish letter represents an entire pyramid of hieroglyphs, an entire wisdom teaching, entire lesson. And the animating principle of the tree of life will all be discussed here as well. So anyway, jumping to it, you know the basics. So here we go. I'm going to talk about the hanged man, the devil, and then the final judgment card. So here we are, the hanged man, which is in this deck called the martyr. And it's called Arcanum 12 because the different magical princes are called Arcanums. Haha. So Arcanum 12, letter Egyptian Luzane, Hebrew Lamed, English L, number 12. Astrologically, the zodiacal sign Pisces. Color, the darker shades of purple. Tone, low A. Occult science, natural alchemy. Human function, sensing the spiritual aromas. Natural remedies, such herbs as mosses which grow in the water, ferns, and seaweed. Mineral, the talismanic gem peridot, and such stones as sand, gravel, pumice, and coral. L12 represents and expresses in the spiritual world the revealed law, in the intellectual world the precept of duty, in the physical world sacrifice. Remember then, son of earth, that sacrifice is a divine law from which none is exempt, but expect any ingratitude from men. Always hold thy soul in readiness to render its account to the eternal. If Arcanum 12 should appear in the prophetic signs of thy horoscope, a violent death will spread its snares upon the way. But if the world attempts thy earthly life, do not die without accepting with resignation this decree, and pardon thy cruelest enemies, for whosoever does not forgive here below will be condemned in the next life to eternal solitude. In divination, Arcanum 12 may be read as sacrifice or expiation. Arcanum 12 is figured by a man suspended by 1 foot from a gallows which is supported by 2 trees, each having 6 cut branches. His hands are tied together, forming a down-pointing triangle, above which one leg crosses the other in the form of a cross. From the hands, gold pieces drop to the earth. It is a sign of a violent death, coming unexpectedly by accident, or in the expiation of a crime, or accepted voluntarily through heroic devotion to truth and justice. The 12 cut branches indicate the destruction of the 12 houses of the horoscope, signifying the extinction of life. The cross above the triangle, a symbol, the reverse of that on Arcanum 6, or Arcanum 4 actually, indicates the material forces have gained the ascendancy and subdued the mind. The coins dropping upon the earth signify wasted effort and the ebbing of the life forces. They also indicate that the efforts of the martyr who loses his life in furthering truth and justice are never lost, but remain on earth after he has passed. Ideals as yet unrealized persist in the astral about the earth until they contact some other person through whom they find suitable and more complete expression. Number. Numerically, 12, being the second decav of 3, may be represented by Arcanum 3, expressing on the vibratory level indicated by Arcanum 2. That is, union expressing on the negative plane, the result of which is depicted in Arcanum 12. But it is also has another aspect, for union may also be on the plane of science, as denoted by Arcanum 2. And thus considered, Arcanum 7 indicates that the science of union rests upon sacrifice and devotion, for selfishness is the antithesis of higher union. This thought, however, is perhaps better expressed by adding 3 and 9 to indicate union guided by wisdom, while the adverse significance is more completely denoted by 6 plus 6, indicating trials upon trials. The 8 plus 4 aspect is better, for it reads just as realized. Astrology, as the sign Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac and rules the house of self-undoing, of expiation and crime, as well as the sacrifice and disappointment, the astrological correspondence with Arcanum 12 is obvious. Human function. As a symbol of religious devotion, or for the expiation of sin, it was anciently the custom to offer a sacrifice unto the Lord or universal law. This taking of life and offering it upon the altar of expiation was to be a sweet savor unto the Lord, but its highest import was the implication of the sacrifice of the animal part of one's nature upon the altar of devotion to cosmic welfare, and that such sacrifice, through the aspirations which prompt it, nourishes the spiritual nature. Such exalted emotions, in addition to building a spiritual body, cause radiations to emanate from a man similar to those spiritual aromas which can alone be apprehended by the psychic senses. In alchemy, because life is short and the processes of the alchemical art take time, the variety of the ingredients which enter in transmutation becomes limited. Some such ingredients, therefore, which, had we more time, might be used successfully, must be sacrificed to the need of other ingredients. Thus are we compelled to exercise choice in their selection. This choice should be made only after careful analysis has revealed the quality of each, the effort at all times being made to retain that which already is far advanced and truly useful. When such a choosing becomes imperative, the grosser metal must be sacrificed that we may retain the more refined. In the Bible, Arcanum 12 pictures Judas after he repented. It also symbolizes the fig tree that was cursed for not being fruitful. The other aspect of this symbol is that of voluntary sacrifice instead of expiation. This is exemplified in the persecution and violent death of the apostles, and also in the conversion of the rich publican Zacchaeus. In mythology, it is Prometheus undergoing perpetual torment for his immortal theft of the divine fire from heaven with which to benefit humanity. Masonry. Arcanum 12 is represented by the ritual in the Christian mark degree, where the grand ministers execute the judgment of the Lord and the candidate bewails his fate because his lips are unclean. Before conferring the mark in some obediences, a live coal is taken from the altar and pressed to the candidate's lips to signify expiation. And in Magick, Arcanum 12 symbolizes the certain fate that ever follows those who use magical powers without discrimination. The cross above the triangle signifies that the magician has become the servant of the very elemental forces he sought to master. The practice of magic, unless with wisdom and unselfishness, inevitably leads to tragedy, and those who attempt to use sex in magic to attain selfish power merely fasten upon themselves evil elementaries that often force them to follow the example of Judas Iscariot and commit suicide in their attempt to get free from them. The benefic side of the Arcanum is this exposition of magical law. Quote, "Give all thou hast of breath, of power, or life, in just duty and lawful motive. Expire honestly the corrupted or contaminated matter, and you shall instantly be filled with the celestial fire and become refined." In initiation, Arcanum 12 indicates the neophyte's absolute devotion to the cause of truth and progress. It exemplifies the summons of the Nazarene. Go thy way, sell whatsoever thou hast, and give to the poor, and thou shalt have treasures in heaven. And come, take up thy cross, and follow me. Henceforth the struggling soul takes no thought what it shall gain personally by its efforts, but devotes its energy to assisting in the progressive evolution of creation, sacrificing life itself, if necessary, in the cause of truth and justice. And in occult science, natural alchemy embraces those processes which take place slowly in nature, but which man can hasten and utilize for himself if he possesses sufficient knowledge. To this end, therefore, he studies all the transformations that have taken place in the world, physical, biological, mental, and religious, that he may perceive just what nature has thus accomplished. Having arrived at a comprehensive knowledge, thus of relations of things to each other and to himself, he utilizes this information to bring those transmutations to pass which, in this new wisdom, he now most desires. So we're going to continue that on with another lesson. Stay tuned. Thanks for tuning in to the Dr. Zeero Free Magic Secret Show. Hit the subscribe button. Let people know I exist. I can't really promote myself too much because I'm Zeero. So just post this in Facebook groups or wherever. Let people know. Bippity bippity, skibbity bop bop bop, doobie doobie doo, da da da. Download there's an app called Tubi, and there's awful horror movies on it. Tons of horror movies. Everything you ever saw, like as a VHS for rental, and you said, I don't want to rent that. No one's seen that. That probably sucks. But it's got a cool cover. Every single one of them. Every one of them. For free now on your phone. Tubi app. I don't work for them. I'm just a horror movie fan. Check it out. Later, guys.